Welcome to the Black Boardroom. I'm Brittany.
I'm Ed.
And I'm Nikita.
That was so much better. I wish everybody would have seen what happened. I might just keep it in. You know, I might just.
Please don't.
You never know.
Please don't. No.
How y'all doing?
Struggling, y'all.
How y'all feeling?
All right. It's been a day, but I think we're here.
Y'all look good. Y'all sound good.
Thank you.
Thank you. We made it.
Y'all made it. We made it. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So, I want to start off, if it's okay, with a woulda, coulda, shoulda. Because I just feel like disrupting some things right now.
Uh-oh.
So,
Straight to the
I
table.
know,
Brittany's
y'all.
not doing this one, y'all. All right, peep game. I received this. I definitely received this. Someone DM'd, a young lady DM'd me with a scenario. She's been tuning in to the first 2 episodes. She wants to know how to become a board member. So we'll get into that a little later.
Yes.
You feel me? That's pretty cool. But all right, here we go. I met a young man 3 months ago or so, and there was an immediate attraction. We started off communicating heavily by phone, which led to a few meetups. I am a woman who normally doesn't give up the cookies right away. Okay. So, just kidding. So, I really appreciated him not wanting to jump straight into my cookie jar. I wonder, never mind. If a week or so ago, we decided to go out to get some drinks, which led us to damn near making love in the club. Yeah, she definitely peeped game. She definitely watched. Yeah, she did. But we'll get back to that later as well.
Gosh.
I just knew we were about to take it back to his crib and adult, but he dropped me off, which wasn't a concern right away. But then I began noticing other things that raised a few red flags. We never talk about sex. The first time I slept over his house, he slept on the couch, and he wears those hoochie daddy jeans and shorts way too much. 2 days ago, 2 days ago, I made a random stop at his house in nothing but a trench coat and heels, and that didn't even spark an interest. I am starting to think he isn't into women. Am I wrong for that? Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
That is a lot to unpack.
But before we get there, can someone explain to me hoochie daddy jeans? Like, I get the shorts, but what are the jeans?
The tight jeans, the real skinny jeans, you know, like.
That's what I'm taking it as.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at first I started thinking like, this is a respectable guy,
That's
right?
where I
And
was
I was just
going.
like,
That's
okay,
where I was
she
going.
a little bit pushing things, right? But and a lot of guys wear the skinny jeans. It's a trend, so no red flags there. But the shorts, that's a little skeptical.
But that's also a trend.
What?
It is.
Yeah, it's a trend.
It is.
That's where the hoochie daddy came from.
It is. But then the showing up in the trench coat, and I might have to look in the mirror if I show up with a trench coat and boots in somebody's house and they turn me down. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But he could still be respectable and just really appreciating their relationship and wanting to take things slow. And maybe he's just a little old-fashioned. Not even old-fashioned, just, you know, some morals and
See, I'll go with that. However, that's where communication comes in. You see what I'm saying? So if that's what he's attempting to do, and maybe he's, you know, celibate, maybe he's just trying to wait a little long for whatever reason, have that conversation. Because just being an adult, you know that a grown woman who's attempting, I mean, obviously if she's coming over that way, then you know what she's getting at.
But could she have the conversation too, though? She could have, like, you just don't out of the blue, kind of without that type of conversation or things leading that way, show up.
But how many assumptions are made in relationships and people don't actually talk to one another?
Very true.
That's one of the biggest problems.
And but you're right. That is something that should have happened earlier in their whatever this is, because I don't even, would this even be a relationship? Not to say that sex solidifies a relationship or you have to be sexually engaged with someone for it to be a real relationship. That doesn't have to be. But this doesn't sound like a relationship to me.
But she said, how long? What was the time frame?
So they started, they met like 3 months prior to, I just got this a few days ago. So
okay, So about 3 months.
So
that's
not a long time. Because y'all in the club and touching,
but they almost made love in the club, making love in the club.
Right.
But so obviously there's something there that says so he can dance and he can, but maybe just not.
But something's wrong that he's not telling her.
I agree.
And it goes beyond being sexually disciplined, and it goes beyond, oh, well, I'm celibate or I'm a Christian and I don't do that. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It goes beyond that. There's something lying beneath the surface that she needs to probe a little bit. And I think she's going to have to do that because he ain't going to tell her.
Which is a red flag for me because we're not going to start off that way.
But he could also have a red flag now that she's showing up in a trench coat.
That's where I was at.
So what about his red flag?
Do that? If he wasn't throwing it out there, like, or no type of...
Maybe he needed a little push.
Or maybe she was just trying to figure some things out real quick.
Yeah, but maybe she's a little too pushy.
Yeah, because that right there is that's from 0 to 100.
But so according how I'm taking this is she didn't do that wasn't the first thing. That was like after the love in the club, potential after. I think she was trying to see like, am I tripping or is there something else?
And that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. See, because I'm going to give it to you from my angle and what I shoulda, coulda, woulda type. I'm too old for games.
What could you have done? What would you do first?
What would I do? It wouldn't even have got to the trench coat situation because we would have had a talk before that. You know what I'm saying? We're going to talk and let me know where you're coming from and where you're at with things when it comes to sex. Because look, we're not teenagers. So it's like this. If you're of age and you're a sexually active person, it's not out of pocket to have that conversation 3 months into the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's talk. Like that conversation, honestly, like if we're being real, that would have been came up.
It's overdue.
Yeah, you're going to talk about sex within 3 months. I mean, being a grown man and woman, you done already almost done got your usher on in the club. So if that's the case, that conversation should have came up. That way there's no assumptions to be made. So that's what I would have done. Like, so where you at? Are you celibate? Like, what's your life like with God and what's
I just thought about something. What if he's a virgin? What if he's a virgin?
He could be. He could be.
Well,
he could be a virgin.
He could be a virgin.
There are virgins out there still.
A pastor's son.
Is it? There are. I didn't know that.
Oh, but he was in the club.
But they didn't do nothing. You could still have virgins.
I was a virgin at one point in time in the club. So I
definitely was.
Not in the adult club. Not in the adult club.
Not in the adult club, and not where
I was up in the adult club in a virgin. So yeah.
But was you dancing provocatively?
No. That's never my twist.
So there was that.
Yeah,
so
no.
The bottom line is, again, in any relationship, and it doesn't have to be, again, like Brittany said, a sexual relationship, but any relationship, friendship, whatever, it's all about communication and 100%. Understanding.
100%.
And a lot of, even as an adult, a lot of, like when there's that attraction, there's not always that communication. It could have been straight from the club to the bedroom. You know what I'm saying? But he dropped it off at home.
Yep.
It's not always going to be that conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
But at this point, 3 months in, if she's guessing whether or not he is celibate, he is gay, he's a virgin, he's whatever, there is maybe not that attraction to her. If she got to guess all of that,
yeah.
Swipe left.
First of all, he ain't your man. He ain't your man, sis. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you. I don't even think it's like a friend zone thing either because things have happened. You know what I mean? But there's something he ain't telling you. He's afraid of something.
But something's not telling me gay.
Maybe
I'm just not gay.
That's another conversation as well. But
that's a great question. Like, I mean, we could go on and on with that one, but I just
But I'd have asked him about them shorts, though. If we was going out and he had them shorts on, I'm going to need you to change them shorts, because...
What if he just rested around the house? Is that still okay?
I don't know about these shorts.
Not my man, but I'm just saying.
Can I have them shorts? Because I think they're going to look better on me than you. So let's switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not with the short shorts either. So.
Or the skinny jeans. I'm sorry. No.
Well, skinny's kind of the
that's I don't care. Who is it the thing for? Teenage boys? Because not grown men.
Well, don't come to me with nothing all crazy either now. What do you like to see your man in? What kind of jeans?
Not skinny. Not skinny jeans.
Yeah, skinny's kind of getting played anyway.
Even when it wasn't played, it was still a no-go.
Oh, see, I was okay with it, but I like, I'm my fashion. I'm into fashion a little different.
It's fashion over foolishness.
That part. So it's
something.
something. I'm not saying ballerina pants. Now it's a difference. If you can't get your ankle outside of your foot is stuck in the ankle. That's a bit much. But a slim cut, I was with that. Like I like the little
But slim cut is different than skinny jeans.
Right.
That's different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Skinny jeans.
Yeah. So you like the Kendrick Lamar boot cuts?
No, those are flare. Were they flare boot cuts?
They were flare.
It was flare with boot cut at the knee. Man. I don't know. It was a lot going on.
It was a lot going on.
So that's not your thing either.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Trends are what they are.
Yeah, no question. I'm gonna say, my guy, please just have a conversation. Just.
At this
like
point,
that.
yes.
But
because she has to feel humiliated at this point.
Yeah.
Going to that door.
Well, she should be done. And if you showed up in a trench coat and your boots and you turn around and walk away and never talk to him again.
Yeah, that's true. Because that would be quite type embarrassing. Like I would be like, okay.
But I mean, at the very least, if she really cared about him, there should still be a conversation.
Just talk.
Still be a conversation.
It's so easy.
Maybe
to
not
just
continue
talk.
to pursue a relationship because at this point, again, I never think y'all really had a relationship.
Yeah,
but
I see that.
At this point, it does warrant a conversation. Y'all need to talk. Like, I just need to know for my peace, for my sanity, Brittany. Like what's going on? Because I'm thinking it's me. Huh?
She just wanted pillow talk. She don't want to talk.
But you know what? Like the roles are reversed here.
I agree.
Like
even the
she's the one. She's the one
shorts.
that's pushing up on him, and he's the one that's like he ain't even say wait. He ain't even saying let's take our time. He ain't even saying that.
Well, according to this DM, he could have said that.
He could, right.
See,
We don't
the double
know.
standard thing, though. See, that goes back to that because. I mean, because nothing wrong with her being a little aggressive, like this is what she wants. She's
sexually liberated.
Yeah.
I mean, she knows what she wants. She's going after what she wants. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, maybe he living up to the 90-day rule. Maybe he like.
Well, no,
maybe
it's 3 months. 3 months. It's been 3 months.
Yeah, that's 90 days.
Yeah,
but maybe it wasn't quite 3 months. It could be 2 months.
I mean, but to your point, though, maybe he's
Nikita.
That's the trajectory.
No, that's what we're not gonna do. We don't defend who
girl. Yeah,
Wait, I'm not defending him. I'm not defending either one of them.
You said swipe left like 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So. But I mean, if you care about this person, have a conversation.
Yeah.
Whether or not y'all stay together, have a conversation.
That's the moral of the story.
All right, y'all. So today we are going to be talking about a topic that may kind of ruffle our feathers, somebody's feathers a little bit, racism and white supremacy. So we're going to talk about racism first. And before we get into this part of the discussion, I want to throw it to production because I would like for us to hear and understand, to apply to this conversation, the definition of racism.
Racism, noun. Sorry. Prejudice, discrimination, or discrimination by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people in the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized.
Okay. So there was a lot in that definition. But what stood out to me was institution. Because we know a lot of this is systemic, meaning the way things have been structured, the intent and the purpose for the way things operate in systems. It is set up in a specific and particular way. And we know that it doesn't favor us, that it favors one group in particular, and we know what that is. I mean, we're not afraid to say it, white people. But with that, I want to ask y'all, do y'all believe Black people can be racist?
So I do not. And I think a lot of people take certain words from the definition that AC read, and think about prejudice and bias. And they just apply that and Brittany, you pointed out a very important word, institutional, and being systemic. So Black people can have prejudice and biases.
Anyone can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Against white people, but we are not in a position of power.
There you go.
To be able to be racist against white people. And I think that's what they fail to see, how the systems are set up. And it was designed in a way that white people can oppress us. You also talked about marginalized communities. White people are not a marginalized community. So, and they're not an oppressed people. So we cannot be racist towards them. However, they always, like I said, try to flip it and just take those with somebody is prejudiced against them or show biases against them. Then it's like, that's reverse racism. It's not.
No. Which is not even a thing. Can we say that?
Exactly.
Very clearly, that is not a thing.
No, it is not.
Very clearly.
No, it is not.
So, yeah, that's how I feel. I don't feel that Black people can be. Like you said, anybody can have prejudices and biases, which Black people do exhibit, just like all people.
Yeah.
And not just against, for racists, just for different things, women, men, whatever. But definitely Black people can't be racist.
I agree. I mean, she said it perfectly. In order for it to be considered racism, I mean, it requires power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And clearly, history shows and tells us that white people hold dominant power. You know, and that's just it. Period. They hold it. We've been and we still are at a disadvantage. People of color were just at a disadvantage. They may promote it one way, you know, even when it comes to things like education opportunities and, you know, when it comes to the economy, like they'll put it out there like we all have the same opportunities, but we all know that we don't. So no, you said it perfectly. Like, yes, definitely some prejudices. That's just what it is. Everyone has prejudices, but when it comes to reverse racism, that's made up. Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Nope.
Right. And even when you talked about promoting it one way, when you talk about, things like affirmative action, those things wouldn't be needed if we all started at the same,
that's right,
footing and had those same opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
1000% agree.
So with this, and talking about prejudice and bias and all that, even if we were to go a little deeper than that and to just say, have absolute hatred for, our hate collectively as Black people essentially has no effect on the lives of white people. But their hate towards us has everything to do with our safety and our lives. And to me, that's the difference that it makes. What I don't like when we have this conversation about race, and it's not Black people, but it could be some Black people, but usually the argument you hear from white people is, I don't see color. You usually hear, all you have to do is be kind and respect people. But truth be told, I don't care how much you like me as a person. You see my skin color.
Right.
You cannot deny that.
I'm offended if you don't.
Exactly.
Right. And on top of that, thinking that kindness and respect takes the place of killing people, takes the place of the laws that, have been created and some still in existence to be against, communities of color or other marginalized communities. There's no amount of kindness and respect that makes that go away.
Right.
It's not a problem to be solved in that way. It is something that needs to be completely dismantled. And in order to do that, I'm talking about tearing down all the systems. And y'all know that is not something that white people want to do.
No. They benefit from it too much.
Exactly.
No.
I kind of feel like some of those systems are being dismantled. Maybe.
Do you?
You think so?
I mean, according to all the things that are like occurring right now, not so much racist systems, but like everything that the administration is currently doing is like literally dismantling.
There's a difference. See, it's not being dismantled. I think, okay. It's more of an implosion. It's happening from the inside. They're destroying everything that's going on. The focus was to elevate a certain type of citizen. And we know that ain't us. What's happening is everybody is becoming collateral damage in the process. So it's not so much dismantling. It is these unintended consequences that are happening. And now certain walls are starting to come down. I mean, that's just how I see it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So, because there are, and we need to kind of talk about the Black Republican and then Black MAGA. And is there a difference?
I think there's a difference, but okay. In people's minds, being a Republican is being conservative, but I question you in asking, what are you trying to conserve? What? If you say traditions, then what traditions? Because I can guarantee you those traditions don't include you or people that look like you. I can guarantee you that any of the other systems that you're trying to conserve were not even intended for you to benefit from. So what essentially are you conserving to call yourself a conservative? What I think Black people are and have always been is probably more morally sound and more ethical, but they get the two conflated with thinking that's being conservative. But if you want to call it that, then okay, call it that. But then you have to question, well, what is it that I'm really attaching myself to? What am I being conservative about? What am I trying to continue to uphold?
And also, I think, what are you detaching yourself to?
Yeah.
I mean, from.
Right.
Exactly.
Can you unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I hate to go to sports, but it's just what pops in my mind right away. So you think about individuals, Black individuals who have elevated to a different financial status. And so now it's sort of like I'm detaching myself from those that I look like.
Yeah.
Because now I have elevated financially and I am sort of above where I came from. So now I want the white woman. You know, I want to be Republican. I want to do all of these things that says
success.
Yeah.
That's right.
It does get the outward look of
success. Success is classified by the white person.
Yes.
So I'm detaching myself now from Blackness.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to just classify or just to clump athletes. Although I get it.
Yeah, that's the first example that popped in my head. Just an example. Definitely not just athletes.
Yeah, no question.
Oh,
I believe that,
but that's just where we see it the most, to be honest with you.
I disagree. I think that actors, I think any, okay, maybe you're right. Like,
I think so.
No, I'm not saying it because literally I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying it because athletes are more in your face than everything else in their season. So you're going to see them,
Yeah, you'll see it more
and more.
How many times do y'all get surprised when you see a Black male athlete with his significant other or wife and she's Black too? It's like, oh.
and it should not be that. Right. That is so
You're
true.
pleasantly surprised. Right? But operative word, surprised. Yes.
No, that's whack.
And so Nikita, you probably didn't intend to go there, but you talked about, interracial dating or coupling and what you just said there. So what I don't like about that is how Black men don't come for me.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Not all of y'all, but
the
ones that intentionally, purposefully, very loudly want to detach themselves from Black women and probably all or most things Black. I'm sorry, I can't get with that. If Black women are not your preference, then let it be that. Black women are not your preference. But to be with the one that you're with that is non-Black and to disparage and put down Black women.
Oh, yeah.
By doing that, that is unnecessary and uncalled for. You do not have to put Black women down, disrespect Black women at the expense of you being in this relationship with a white or other non-Black person. That's uncalled for. And what you're doing is you're not only disrespecting Black women that could potentially be attached to you, in a relationship, but you're also disrespecting your mother, your grandmother, your sisters.
That's where I was going to go.
This is where you come from.
And your children, because should you have children, they're still Black.
That's right.
I mean,
they are.
They are.
But it depends. You know what? I'm going to be... Biracial people don't come for me.
No.
Yes.
But listen.
Biracial folk,
listen. Traditionally, it is the mother that upholds a lot of the views and the exposure to what the child has in their upbringing. Even as biracial kids, yes, you are Black because you do have Black blood that runs through your veins. But I tend to see a lot of biracial children with white mothers who the kids are just a little bit detached, just a little bit different, and not so much attached to or claiming their Blackness. Like the ones that do, it's like, maybe, they had a mother that was, that's cool and, understands that, yes, my child is Black. But there are a large part of biracial kids with white mothers who these kids are walking around here and they are not attached to the culture.
But that's a cultural thing. And it's because of their parents. It doesn't make them not Black. So I just said, we were talking about the guys who are disrespecting Black women when they're with a different race. And what I'm saying is their child is still Black. Because whether that child identifies or does not identify, based on how that child looks, when they go somewhere, other people are going to see them as Black.
So, and not necessarily, because based on how they look, they can choose to not identify with their Blackness at all. And they have that privilege. I get that. But even looking a little bit on the darker side and you're Black, they still have that privilege because of the whiteness in them to not attach to their Blackness at all.
Some of them, not all. But that guy who is a Black male, who is with a non-Black person, who is disrespecting Black women because he no longer identifies, has a child with that person. That child is still a Black child. And depending on where that child, how that child looks, that child is still going to be seen as Black. They are Black, but I mean, sometimes they can't disassociate from that. Not only that, you talked about like the mother raising them and stuff. You can have a Black child who looks just like me. I can't look anything but Black, who could be adopted by white parents and still not identify with their Blackness.
Absolutely.
So they can't get away from that. So that's a cultural thing. But that male who's raising a Black child because he is the father, that child is still Black. So he's still disrespecting his child. I was just making a point because you said disrespecting his mother. So at the same time, he's also disrespecting his child and, teaching his child something totally different. But it's just really just that I've made it. I'm over here, and Blackness is,
and we're better than this.
And it's almost like he doesn't find it important to make sure, because he's obligated. Regardless of who you're with, you are obligated to make sure your children know who they are, where they come from, and that's, I guess, one of the biggest things you need to do is make sure that they are around their Black side, because they need to be able to identify, but I think we see it a lot, like maybe in the industry, because of the money situation, it's like, it just affords them different opportunities, from my personal experience, like I have a lot of biracial, in my family. There's a lot of, it's just what it is. But they're more down here, and not saying, I don't mean to say that in a demeaning way, but like their head's not in the air. It's not down like they go to these schools.
Rooted in reality.
Exactly. So it's just like they go to school with either, it's predominantly Black, or they, you know, their peers look just like them and have the same household situation. So it's just more likely that people who aren't rich and feel like they've made it, you know, it's just more likely that they're going to be more down to earth. But when you look at, like, I agree, the sports situation, I see more often than not, you know, where these kids are, they've lost. They don't even, it's not even that they didn't lose it. They never had it. Like, they just do not identify with their Blackness. And that is super sad to me, because it's like, it's a lot to, like, I'm so proud to be Black. I don't care what environment I'm in, who I'm around. Like, I'm always me, you know? And we talked about that before. You know, I just could not even imagine being in a world where I can't, you know, where I'm not going to be talking about my people, who my people are, what we come from, where we come from. But I mean, I've also witnessed, you know, more of the situation where they're adopted, and they, you would think that they never met anyone Black.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's the obligation and the responsibility of the people who's raising them to make sure that they can connect with those who are like them. Look, if they don't have any family, then get them in, like, find community or something. They need to know who they are and where they come from. But it's just, it unfortunately happens all the time. And how do you stop it? It's just what it is. You know, my brother, my nieces and nephews are biracial, and my niece, she is like, her mother is white. Obviously, my brother is Black, but she embraces. She wants to know, you know, more about her Black side, because it's like she's really close to her mom. So she was around her mom's family, which is white, a lot. But she was just urging, and she just had that, like, I want to know who my Black family is. So I love that about her, you know, and she's, you know, she don't play around like with the when it comes to like Black Lives Matter and different things like that. She's all about it, you know, and I love to see that. And, you know, listen, embrace your mom. That is your mom. But at the same time, you got to know whose you are, you know, you know whose you are. No, understand, girl. Especially these guys out here who won't, these Black guys who won't, Black girls are just ignorant and just loud, and I cannot stand that. Like, don't just put us all in a box, you know, like they're just ghetto and they, like, you're not Black.
Yeah.
So I just, that just grabs me the wrong way.
And so, you know, to your point, you know, I'm just thinking that requires putting in the work, or the willingness to put in the work, especially if it doesn't come natural, it doesn't come easy, or it's not an understanding that you've grown up with. Because in my family too, you know, I do have some men in my family that are married to white women, but these are relationships that are rooted in love, and there's a respect there. So it's not a barrier to, you know, understanding and wanting to be a part of the culture, or, you know, having the children exposed to certain things. And again, as someone who is choosing to be in an interracial relationship, that's something I think you have to consciously consider, you know, and not to be taken lightly, because yes, although you love someone and you don't matter what they look like and what they do and this and that, we're still living in the world that is they're going to point out the differences. They're going to point out, you know, things that may very well make it difficult for your relationship. And all of that is, you know, maybe those identifying things on the outside, but you just can't be willfully ignorant to want to be with someone, especially of a different race, and not consider, okay, well, how are we going to raise these kids? How am I going to expose myself to your culture, and vice versa, so that this is truly a union? And I think that again has to come with that respect there. But if it's in a place of disrespect and, you know, I just have a preference for white women because Black women are this, yeah, no. No, that's where you lose me and will never gain me back.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have a quick question. Did y'all see? Well, actually, I know y'all saw because Brittany dropped this in our chat. The actor Malik, how do you pronounce his last name?
Yoba.
He is no longer identifying as a Black man. Now, I know I have my thoughts. What are some of your thoughts?
Well, now, there was a little more to that because I think when we were discussing it, I was like, okay, so is he doing this to get a rise out of people? Like, he's trolling? Because it seemed like he was kind of trolling white people with this, and not necessarily saying I'm detaching from my blackness.
Yes.
That's not the vibe I got from that.
Right.
And I think a lot of people took it like that only because they saw the headline.
Yeah, the headline is what grabbed you and made you think different. Yep.
So what was the vibe that you got after watching it? Or what was the conclusion? Vibe, conclusion, tomato.
Conclusion was, I think, if I can go back and remember, Lord, I'm getting old, I don't remember much. With how things are changing so in the world, especially in the United States, okay, well, I'm not going to identify as a black man. I'm going to be this, so that I don't remember.
So that was that was what I got from it. It's like, I'll play y'all game. If you want to,
identify as
remove DEI, you know, so that a black person can no longer get ahead.
Then I'm no longer black. Yes.
Not even going to be considered.
See, thank you. I remember now. I remember now.
Black men still got black women's backs.
That's right. That's right.
The problem is we can say we don't identify as black, and we can do all of those things. He can say it, but it's very real that it's who he is. Not necessarily the scenario, but just thinking of a situation where I was in where in a racist county, and was with two white people, one who identified as female and one who was
non-binary.
Yes.
Okay.
And me being black. So show up to this hotel to check in, and the white clerk says, "What are yous doing around here?" First of all, I don't know what yous is, but said, because if you stay here, it's going to be a problem for you and for me. So I initially didn't even want to go into the hotel. Why? Because there's a Confederate flag hanging outside, NRA tags up, and beer bottles, and a showcase of guns. And I'm like, this is not the place for me. Like, this is not a safe space. But I had to instead argue with these two people that I'm there with, that I'm supposed to feel safe with, and my response to them after this whole altercation, finally I left for my own safety. But my response is, you can identify as non-binary, but when you present as a white woman, and this other person presented as a white woman. There is nothing I can do to present anything other than a black woman.
That's
and which puts me in danger in places. So while I get Malik Yoba's, commentary, and I get it, making, whatever with white people, but it's like it's just very real for us that this is our reality. We show up, and when we show up, the first thing that people see is our blackness. They don't see my education. In a meeting the other day where somebody was talking about, if they speak up, they feel inferior sometimes, and I'm like, or uneducated based on what they may say. And they were a white person. I said, well, guess what? When I show up as a black person, a lot of times that's already the thought process that this person is inferior and they're uneducated. And guess what? I'm highly educated and I'm not inferior to but that's just by looking at me and my skin complexion. So I get it, but it's just not our reality. No matter how we show up, we're going to show up as black.
And what bothers me deeply is, that's two great examples. But, and I don't know, I guess I probably should have asked this before I said it, but I guarantee you those that you were with still acts as if they don't get it. Like you have to at least say, you know what, I see where you're coming from. Or I see that now, but it's always no, you're not us. You will never feel what we feel. But at least I think that's part of the problem too for me, because everyone's not racist. You know,
Right.
I think some people just kind of grow up in an environment where they just kind of avoid talking about it or act as if it doesn't exist. You know, racism doesn't exist. And then, but yet, so they benefit from all the, you know, the white privilege, you know, but it's like when it comes down to it, and you're literally in this example with me, like you're here with me, you see what happened. It'll still be.
But in the mere fact that I had to argue about my safety and why I don't feel safe. First of all, with a Confederate flag out. So how ignorant are you? Like,
exactly.
when do you learn?
They'll justify something.
Exactly.
They'll justify, yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's like they don't get it, because then they equated it to them getting a flat tire, like in the road. And I'm like, girl, if you get a flat tire, somebody's going to pull over and help you. If I get a flat tire, they may hang me.
Exactly.
Like, so we're not the same.
We're not the same. Yep. Yeah.
So, quick question. Because I know that a lot of our experiences, when it's like we feel a certain way when we're in these rooms, would it be safe to just segregate all over again? I know they're pushing that.
See,
would that be more beneficial for us? So we don't have to continue to educate or explain ourselves to the other to our counterparts, our white counterparts, or is segregation like not the wave?
I think at this point, to segregate now, I think it's nearly impossible to do.
Yeah.
So how I feel is, I think we were better off remaining segregated in a way, only because not every Black community, but there were many Black communities, Black cities that were thriving. We had our own. We owned our own. We had our own hospitals, banks, schools, stores, whatever have you. Communities. And it was communities where there was a togetherness and all that. I don't think the expectation when Black people were finally able to experience some degree of liberation, because we ain't totally free. I've never been totally free. So some degree of liberation. We weren't expected to do well with that. But then we took that and turned it into something. And I don't think they were expecting that. So, you know, by the mere fact that we were able to make something out of nothing, they hated it so much that they came in and burned our cities. They came in, they flooded our cities. They ran us out and pillaged. All these things happened. Only for us to then want to be integrated into their systems to experience equality when we already had our own. Why now do we have to, and I'm talking back then, you know, when we were fighting for integration, why do we have to concede to the fact, well, of what y'all try to make fact, y'all meaning the systems that be, that these systems, these structures that y'all have is the only option, instead of fighting to rebuild and get what we had back. So in a lot of ways, I think segregation hurt us more so than helped us. Not to say that to be segregated means you can never interact with someone of a different race, you can never be in friendship or relationship with, but I'm talking about segregation in the sense of having our own and our own systems and our own safe spaces and our own communities. That's what I'm talking about. We lost all of that.
We did lose all of that. And you said something very important, like for equality. And even when we were integrated into the system, it wasn't equal. So it was just like, give us the little scraps to make us feel like we're a piece.
That's right.
No, but that is equality.
And
that's not equity. That's equality.
Well, yeah.
No, it is. Equality is, and I'm envisioning the image, the graphic.
Yeah.
Stepping on a stool.
Yeah, you have 3 people, different sizes, and you're putting all of them at the same, like on the same thing, so they can still have this, like they all can see. That is equality. Equity.
No. But there is no equality, because you're saying that from the stance of there's an even playing field, and we know that there's not.
That's
so
my
there's
point,
no equality,
right? But that's
there's not even equity, because true equity means that I have all that I need. I have access. I have resources. I have the tools. I have all that I need to be able to exist in the same manner in which you do.
Right.
We have neither.
Hold on. No. What I'm saying is the system that they put in place for us to accept is exactly what it is, and that's equality. Because it's not an even playing field, but we thought it was. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I'm just saying that
so,
system that, you said earlier, one of the many systems that are not really for us, but we bought into because we thought now we are equal.
Yeah.
Right.
We still
well, you know what?
equal.
Then that's on us for getting bamboozled, because these are the very same people.
But it's not, because like you said, they took our systems away. So at the same time, we still needed to be a part of something. And these are the very same people. So, like the school system.
But to be a part of their something, and to think that we were going to be accepted as being a part of their something, we're going to be looked at the same way that y'all are being looked at. For us to even think that that was a glimpse of reality.
Yeah.
We fooled ourselves.
I mean, but we have to give our, I don't want to say ancestors, but whatever's in between ancestors and us currently, I feel like we should give them grace, because their fight was a way different fight than our privilege. And when you come from maybe a generation or two of slavery, and all you want is to get out of that and be accepted, if that looks better than my current situation, especially when all I know is witnessing my wife or my husband, be the R word, witnessing my children getting snatched from me, witnessing hangings, all these things. I just feel like I know I hear a lot of like my peers saying, like, I ain't my ancestor. You say that now.
Right.
But until you really experience something like that, I'm sorry, my G, but you don't know what you would really do.
You really don't.
It's
and
true.
they
Really don't.
fought, bled, died for the right to have access, for something they
For the
didn't
right
have
to just
access
be
to.
more than 3/5 of a
Right,
human
exactly.
being.
Right.
True.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's real.
So, I just think that.
So it's like they fought for equality. We have to fight for equity.
But I am not going to give up on the idea that our ancestors, even 2 generations removed from slavery, didn't have the thought in their head that, now why would we go and try to gain freedom and access from the very same people who took it away from us in the first place, who captured us?
That's the story, How to Make a Slave. That's why. I believe that's exactly why. They had us all messed up from the very, very
No, and I understand that, but what I'm saying is I believe that there was a faction of our ancestors who knew better than that. Got to. And I mean, yes, did they break us down mentally? Yes. Did they brainwash us in a sense? Yes. But I don't think that all of us were on that same train of wanting to be a part of and be considered along the same lines of, our white racist counterparts. So to wrap up this piece of the conversation about racism, I just want to say this. I think a lot of the problem is we look at racism as if it is sharks in the water, not realizing that racism is the water. And if we start there, then I think that we put ourselves in a better sense of tackling and dismantling the pillars that uphold racism. Y'all agree? Was that too far out there?
That was that was very good. I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
That was deep.
Well, we are going to continue the conversation And in doing so, we're going to talk about another very, very important piece to this, and should very well be included: white supremacy. So before we dive deep into this, I want to again throw to production and have the definition of white supremacy read for us, so we can all start with a basis of understanding of what it is.
White supremacy, the belief that white people constitute a superior race and should therefore dominate society, typically to the exclusion of other racial and ethnic groups.
So white supremacy. Do y'all believe all white people uphold white supremacy standards?
Can you rephrase the question?
I'm not going to rephrase it. I will ask it, but I'm going to take my time in asking it and maybe emphasize certain words. Do you believe that all white people uphold white supremacy standards?
No.
How don't they?
Believe. So first I don't think that, how can I put this? First off, when I think of, let me not say right now in present tense. When I used to think of white supremacy right away, like if I had to get if I needed a visual, the first thing I would think of is the Ku Klux Klan.
Okay.
You know, I'm thinking about the hoods and, you know, that was what it was for me. And it took me, you know, some living to do. Like I had to live a little bit, experience a little more to understand that it's much deeper than that. You know, and I think once I realized, I mean, it could be your neighbor who, you know, and I don't necessarily think that, I really want to make sure my wording is right, because first of all, I got a cannon to my left. I know you eating this up, but it's like every white person is not a white supremacist.
What makes them different?
I think maybe some, and I kind of touched on this earlier, maybe like some white people just, maybe they were raised to believe that like their whiteness and all the things, the privilege and stuff is just the norm, but not necessarily like they don't mean any harm intentionally. I know. I know you don't want to. I just don't.
No, we can go with that, but let me challenge you a little bit. So I'm gonna ask maybe some series of questions. Okay. So
she said a series of questions.
No, because we're gonna break this down.
Okay.
So you were raised to believe a certain way, but you attempt to detach yourself from that. So white supremacy standards is not necessarily just a mental belief. It is a belief that shows up in our laws. It is a belief that shows up in policies. It's a belief that shows up in politics. It's a belief that shows up in how organizations are ran.
So they benefit
religion,
from it. Yeah.
All these things, all the systems, school, everything. So how can a person separate themselves from that if that is the law of the land? If that's just how things are ran, how then can you separate yourself from that?
I think the only way you can separate yourself, I mean, you have to be very intentional.
Okay.
You would have to want to know different. You would have to be open to unlearning a lot of what you were.
There you go.
Yeah.
Still doesn't mean they don't benefit from it. So you can unlearn it, so they're still going to benefit from it, because there's no way around it. I think of like the Jane Elliots of the world, right? So a person who's like intentional. One of the things I recall her saying is talking about how white people are afraid that Black people, you know, if we had this power, we would do the same things to them that they have done to us, right? And one of the very prominent points she made was, then be one of those white people that haven't done anything that you wouldn't fear a Black person.
Wow.
You know, coming back at you.
But now, is that totally realistic? Because it's again, listen, if we operate within these laws that are given to us, within these standards in politics, school, all the systems, all the institutional structures and systems, you don't necessarily have to do something so direct and blatant to operate within that system. By simply following the rules and complying, you're still operating within that system.
But you can challenge the system to make the system equitable for people who don't look like you. And I think that's the difference. When you just say, I'm benefiting from this, but it doesn't matter if Nikita, Brittany, or Ed benefits from this. That's a difference. And I think the Jane Elliots of the world are people that have challenged the system in a way to fight for the rights. I mean, her experiment with the blue-eyed, babies and things like that. It's that's challenging systems. That's trying to show other individuals the inequities that exist and trying to make things right. So while white people are going to benefit from, because it's just the way the system was designed, I think it's still about challenging that system so that you aren't the only race that's benefiting from it.
But that has to be a daily thing.
Yes.
Not only daily, it has to be a consistent thing in every room you step in.
That's the truth.
You have to be conscious of it. You have to be intentional with it.
Exactly.
You have to it has to almost become
the daily routine.
Yeah, it's embedded in you. One of the things, Ebony said, you said about being taught and unlearning, but you said so they may do things unintentionally, right? So I always think about, I don't care what your intention is. Because you can do things intentionally, unintentionally. And even if it's unintentionally, who is it impacting? It's impacting us. Yeah. So it's not about your intention. It's about the impact that something is going to have on others. Yep. And so I often think about that. And that's why I said like the Jane Elliots, because she's thinking about, or at least from what I see, what my perception of who she is, was thinking about the impact that these societal systems, have on people that are not white, people that look like us. So, yeah, I always, when I hear people talk about intention, it just kind of,
the impact is greater than the intent.
Yeah, because the impact is, it don't matter what your intention is, because it's going to impact me. It's not impacting you no matter what your intention was.
Because even if you weren't, and that's why I wanted to tread lightly on, because even if you weren't raised to believe a certain something, or if you weren't taught, this is that and that, this is like, some people they just didn't grow up in a household where their parents sat them down. But even if you have eyes, and if you are walking amongst just, people other than yourself, then you have the ability to know that it's not fair out here, so that's where the thin line comes from me, because it's like, it's one thing to not be raised in it, or like some people just avoid it. I don't see color type thing, like I'm totally, but that's where like I say, like you need to live with intention, as far as like, what, if I'm really paying attention to what's going on in the world, I can see that it's different for me as opposed to them. So at least like, because silence to me is just, you're just as guilty. Like if you're not saying anything and you're staying in there like, I do not agree with this, you're just as guilty. So,
but I wanted to ask the question about white people, but I can really ask it about all of us. And then I'm continue to pick on Ebony because I like picking on Ebony. So do you believe Black people operate within the system of white supremacy? I didn't say benefit from it. Operate.
I guess I never really thought about it.
That's okay. Do you operate within the system of white supremacy?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, if if I'm being real with myself, like, yeah. I mean, again, just like the others, it just becomes the norm.
Exactly. We all have.
It just becomes
how many
the
times
norm.
have we just accepted stuff and not challenged it, not spoken up,
and kind of look at it like that's just the way it is?
Yes. Yes. So we all have.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to frame white supremacy as if it's just a white people thing, because we all fall victim to it, because that's just what the systems are. It's stacked up to be in the favor of white people.
Yeah.
And them as being seen as superior. But it has to come, it comes from this idea of whiteness. And all white people don't identify with whiteness, you know?
Yeah.
Whiteness is part of that white supremacy structure. Those you know, the pillars of that uphold the standards of white supremacy. To favor your whiteness, to consider your whiteness in all things, to know that you have the benefit and the access and the privilege. You know, that is choosing to operate in your whiteness. Not all white people are like that. So yes, it does take challenging the systems. It does take speaking out. And you, again, have to be conscious and intentional of that each and every day, everywhere you go, no matter who you're with, whether it's with people that are of your same race or a different race. So, you know, I just don't want it to be thought that, you know, as us having this conversation, that we mean this to be a thing that all white people do, because we know that. We know better. We know that there are white people, and there are white people in our lives. You know, we have close friends. We have people in our families that may not operate in their whiteness, because there is a level of consciousness and self-awareness that they have, that they know better.
So let me ask you this. Who is more dangerous? The white woman or the white man?
The white woman.
Why?
I say the white woman because that is the one that we didn't see coming. We expected it from the white man. We know that this is a patriarchal system that was built by white men for white men. But the white women, I would say, are becoming the new white man in a way. The ones that choose to operate in their whiteness and the white supremacy and the privilege of it all. Look at the white tears. Look at, have you ever heard of the concept race to innocence?
I've never.
You never heard of that? Okay, so let me put it in perspective. Taylor Swift. Looking at Taylor Swift, how she presents herself, how she acts. Some people, if they didn't know, will find it hard to believe that she is almost 40. She presents herself and acts in such a way that she is perceived as this innocent young adult of a woman who gets passes and things, who has the gays, all eyes on her. Not gays as in gay people, but Gaze. Anyway. But, you know, everything she does turns to gold. She can do no wrong. She is America's sweetheart, basically. Right? But that's how white women can present themselves, to make themselves be perceived as these innocent little, I don't know, flowers or whatever have you. When you have Black women, on the other hand, who do not have that luxury and privilege. So let's keep it with Taylor Swift. And now let's bring in Beyonce. Because we know that there has been a Beyonce, Taylor Swift, not rivalry, so to speak, but, you know, just kind of like a, you know, when they were both on tour at the same time, right? So you heard all of the stats and how Taylor Swift was, she had the highest grossing tour and blah, 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 and all this and that. But it was like, baby, Beyonce's over here breaking multiple records, and she's doing this, you know, like so much more, but she's not getting the attention. She's not getting like the accolades. All you're hearing and all you're seeing being propped up is America's sweetheart. And now she's dating this hot football player. And it's like, this is where, you know, like, oh my God, what are they doing? Oh my God, now they're holding hands. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that is the perception, and that is the favor that white women get. We don't have that luxury. And white women who know that use it to their advantage, to the hurt, harm, and danger of other people. So I say the most dangerous people are white women, not white men.
This concludes part 1 of another much-needed conversation with the Black Boardroom Collective. Stay locked in for part 2.